Best Idea Podcast. I'm Stephen Cochran. And you know how I've had these unexpected moments that being affected by an event or a story just way more than you expected. You have the thing that you learned and however that makes you think and feel. And then the added surprise is layered on top of that. So it can be like a profound moment. But anyway, as I was reading through some things, I came across a story from the New York Times, and I hadn't seen anything about it since it happened, but it was during our military exit from Afghanistan. I had saved a bunch of articles from the show that I did on Afghanistan, and I hadn't read through 2 or 3 of them, and so before I took them out of the file, I went through and read them, and I don't know why I didn't. I definitely regret it because it should have gone in that episode, but when we were making our exit, there was an attack on the airport. It killed 90 or 95 people and maimed 150 more, maybe 180 more. I couldn't find any solid numbers, not even from the government. They have different things, but we can be sure that 13 of them were Marines. So, suicide bomber, this group called ISIS-K or ISK. It's an Islamic State offshoot group. They did a suicide bomb attack on one of the smaller entrances of this airport where everybody was trying to get on airplanes to get out of Afghanistan. So 13 Marines were killed by ISIS-K, and the K is for the Khorasan province where they're from, so they're a super creative group. And after it happened, I can quote the guy in charge. Biden said, "We'll respond with force and precision at our time and at a place of our choosing." And he said, direct quote was, "We will hunt you down and make you pay." So straight to this group. And apparently he had already given the green light or a greener light to the Pentagon to basically just strike any target with a drone that they saw as affiliated with ISIS-K. I mean, Trump had done it, Obama had done it. They already, the light was pretty damn green, but I guess specifically this group now. But without seeking any approval from the White House, just, shoot what you need to. That was according to Politico. And we did respond on the 29th, just a couple of days after. In a neighborhood in Kabul, we sent a Hellfire missile. It's a little longer than 6 feet, about 100 pounds, to destroy a Corolla that had been driven all day by an ISIS affiliate, and it was parked in an ISIS safe house, a suspected ISIS safe house. In fact, the launch killed 2 fairly high-level people in the organization. The U.S. Central Command put a statement out on the 29th that said, U.S. military forces conducted a self-defense unmanned over-the-horizon airstrike today on a vehicle in Kabul, eliminating an imminent ISIS-K threat to Hamid Karzai International Airport. We're confident we successfully hit the target. Significant secondary explosions from the vehicle indicated the presence of a substantial amount of explosive material. We're assessing the possibility of civilian casualties, though we have no indications at this time. We remain vigilant for potential future threats. That's their quote. So the country of Qatar is close enough to Afghanistan that the drone was apparently launched from there. And these drones, they're controlled by somebody that's near where they're landing and taking off to handle that part. But once they're in the air, apparently, control is handed off to the pilots in Nevada. So it's just like you have heard about. They're actually doing the watching and the shooting in Nevada. Well, this one followed a vehicle all day with the suspect in it. And he traveled quite a bit. There's video and satellite footage and witnesses. He was picking people up and loading things in his car, wrapped packages, canisters. And eventually they had seen enough and they had decided that it was likely this guy was loading explosives in his car. They had reports that this sort of car was going to be a part of another attack on the airport. And so, based on what this guy was doing in his movements during the day, they decided that it was him and struck him with his car when it parked at its last stop at this compound, this ISIS compound. They shot the missile. They said they knew exactly who they killed, but they couldn't release the names. This guy, John Kirby, he's a spokesman for the Defense Department, and he said it was a single mission to get these targets. As the assessments and information flowed over time, we were able to recognize that another was killed as well as one wounded. They were ISIS-K planners and facilitators. That's enough reason there alone. I won't speak to the details of these individuals and what their specific roles might be, he said. I'm not going to talk about specific capabilities ISIS may have lost in this strike, except they lost a planner and they lost a facilitator, and they've got one wounded. And the fact that these individuals are no longer walking on the face of the earth, that's a good thing, he said. This is John Kirby. But there's a problem. Right after the attack, the same day, because we live in a world where everything makes it to the internet immediately, there were reports about civilians being around the blast. The BBC reported actually 10 people in the same family were killed. 7 of them were children from ages 2 to 12. The oldest of the 7 kids that were in the blast radius of this missile, the oldest of them was 12 years old. The quote from the BBC article, they interviewed one of the relatives, is the dead guy's brother. The ISIS terrorist brother. It's wrong. It's a brutal attack, and it's happened based on wrong information. He added tearfully, "Why have they killed our family, our children? They're so burned out we cannot identify their bodies, their faces." So the Central Command issued another statement. "We're aware of reports of civilian casualties following our strike on a vehicle in Kabul today." This statement that I'm reading you now came out the same day. "We're still assessing the results of this strike. We know we disrupted an imminent ISIS threat to the airport. We know that there were substantial and powerful subsequent explosions resulting from the destruction of the vehicle, indicating a large amount of explosive material inside that may have caused additional casualties. It's unclear what may have happened, but we're investigating further. We would be deeply saddened by any potential loss of innocent life." Listen to that sentence. We would be deeply saddened by any potential loss of innocent life. We know we disrupted an imminent threat. We know there were powerful subsequent explosions, a large amount of explosive material, but it's unclear what may have happened. They were ISIS-K planners and facilitators. That's enough reason there alone. But I won't speak to the details of these individuals or what their specific roles might be. The surety in the statements, we know. As people dug further, the sad, grotesque fucking horrible truth comes out. And the New York Times pieced together video footage from security cameras, from buildings that this guy visited, matched it to satellite images. They interviewed witnesses, family members. They also visited the bomb site, had weapons experts analyze the remains of the site for these secondary explosions. Because, I mean, if explosives would have been in the car, they would have exploded, and that's what our government was saying happened. And just as a side note, this is one of the reasons it's very good to have large, established media organizations. Every now and then, they do a piece of investigative journalism of extremely high quality. Every assertion made in this story, and they're not the only ones that have these stories out with good information. They're just the best that I found on this. But every assertion they make here is backed up by evidence that they provide you. A lot of it is video footage. So they did the best job of covering this. But the man that was being followed, his name was Zamiri Ahmadi. He was an electrical engineer that worked for a U.S.-sponsored non-governmental agency. This guy worked to deliver food and water and services to people in his area that were being affected by this ongoing war. The suspicious activity was his workday. The mysterious canisters he loaded in his car were drinking water. The ISIS compound they destroyed was his house. And it was customary, his brother said, who they interviewed on video, when he got home, that his kids would come out and help him pull the car into the driveway. So the kids surrounding the car were all his, and 2 were his brothers. Just a few days before this, he had applied to immigrate to the United States as a refugee with his family because he worked for this American NGO and he wanted to be able to leave like everybody else that helped us out while we were there. There was no secondary explosion. There were no explosives in that car. There's video of people standing right there near the house right after, while the car is still on fire, trying to dump pots of water on the car to put the fire out. The walls around it aren't exploded the way a large explosion would seem. It's very obvious if you look at the video what happened. There's still melted plastic within a few feet of the car. If this car was packed with explosives and you shoot a fucking missile at it, the secondary explosion would be pretty substantial, you would expect. Take out a house. So in our rage for revenge because of this airport bombing, we executed a family. This shit happened after 9/11. It was weapons of mass destruction then. A group made up of mostly Saudi Arabians, led by a Saudi Arabian named Bin Laden, attacked us from their base training camps in Afghanistan and Pakistan, so we needed to go into Iraq. I mean, the idea that governments lie is an obvious one, but it isn't often that the lies are both so obvious and so consequential at the same time. You know? I'm an American. I was old enough on 9/11 to still remember everything about it. I remember that feeling that lingered in the room, that sadness, that anger. I was 15. Every adult was just losing their mind. I sat in a room for 20 minutes while my English teacher explained to me what impaling was and drew a picture of a sharp stake on the board and explained that whoever did this attack, that is the fate they should suffer. I mean, people thousands of miles from New York were crying and watching in fucking horror while other people jumped off this burning building. The fall took 10 seconds from that building. 10 seconds. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but let's see. Let's put a 10-second moment of silence here and see. Ten seconds. That's how long they had to stare at the ground on the way down. There's not a person I've ever seen, heard, met, read about that didn't have a serious emotional reaction to that day. You cannot control the horrible things that are going to happen in life, but what you can control is how you react to them. What did we do with ourselves after that attack? Well, what have we been doing with ourselves? To what cause did we dedicate 3,000 lives that ended on the 11th? I mean, as a result of that, we've allowed the killing of between 20 and 40,000 regular people between Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, just with these airstrikes. We have this system by which people could be executed remotely without real evidence. I'm not talking about things that happen on the ground between an American soldier and another combatant. I'm in no position to judge anybody in that sort of environment making decisions to save their own lives. But I am in a position to lay judgment on these drone strikes where force doesn't actually have to be taken or shouldn't be taken because we aren't sure enough. If you're walking with your group through a neighborhood in Afghanistan as a Marine and you see an adult male walking out of a house, coming towards you, reaching for something with really aggressive posture in a war zone, and you shoot him, I get it. I would not say the same thing, though, in the same situation. If you blow up his entire house, when you have a drone hovering over someone for a day and see a guy that looks like a guy you think you're supposed to find, and he's driving a car that is the same color as a car that you heard was going to be part of an attack, and this guy's going places in the car and putting stuff in the car and, oh shit, taking things out of the car, and he goes to a place that maybe might be a place where ISIS affiliates may be staying or planning or facilitating. No one in your military is around to be injured. There is no imminent threat, and we send a fucking missile. The blast radius of some of these missiles is 50, 60 feet, according to the specs that you can find. The average house is 25 feet wide. We shot a fucking missile into a neighborhood. If you could ask any one of those Marines that were killed at that airport, any one of them, if they would see it fitting that the lost time from their families would be best justified by shooting a missile into a neighborhood, even if you were right. If we could ask them, what do you think they would say? If we could ask Lance Corporal David Espinoza, 20 years old, joined the Marines right out of high school, do you think that would be his response? Or Sergeant Nicole Gee, 23. Few days before the explosion, she was posting pictures of herself on Instagram holding this small child in Afghanistan at a camp. I'll put a link to the picture at the bottom. It's a wonderful picture, actually. I'm really glad her family has that. Or Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Noss. He was 23. His wife said he thought it was the ultimate honor to know he was helping people. Would any of them or the 10 others authorize that? I doubt it. I don't know, but I'm going to doubt it. What would you say if a cop acted like that? The same way. He's in a dangerous neighborhood. It's got years of history of being a dangerous neighborhood. He sees a guy that looks like a guy that the cop thought might commit a crime in the future. He's driving a car like the one you were told might be used for this future crime, and you blow up his car from a mile away. I mean, come on. They shot a missile at a car that they thought was packed full of explosives. You remember, that's what they said. We know that there were substantial and powerful subsequent explosions resulting from the destruction of the vehicle, indicating a large amount of explosive material inside that may have caused additional casualties. They were expecting a secondary explosion. Unknown how many explosives were in that car. What if it had taken out the neighborhood? Would that be worth it? I mean, this car wasn't even moving. It wasn't traveling to the airport. It wasn't on a road on the way to the airport. It was parked in a driveway like 3 or 4 miles away. But they were scared that maybe this white car would attack the airport. And later on, there was a car, a white car, affiliated with shooting some missiles. So there was a white car out there trying to cause trouble. And it still did. It still did. But the bullshit, the blatant, obvious lying. We know we disrupted an imminent threat. We know there was a powerful subsequent explosion. A large amount of explosive material, but it's unclear what may have happened. They were ISIS-K planners and facilitators, and that's enough reason there alone. I won't speak to the details of these individuals and what their specific roles might be. Those two statements from Central Command came on the same fucking day. That's how much homework they did. That they were proven wrong before the sun set. So who's accountable for this? What'll happen? Maybe the Democrats will lose a lot of seats in the next election because some of their party members will be deflated that Biden hasn't done what they hoped he would. Just be replaced by a bunch of Republicans that would do exactly the same shit. This is what we allowed the legacy of 9/11 to become. Us, we. The ones who exert no control over our government by not paying attention to what they do and reacting accordingly. Now it is too easy to pay attention to whatever you want for anybody to have any excuse. We had endless opportunity in 2001. We could have done a lot of things. If it was security we were interested in, we got a lot of that at home. We could have shored up alliances with Canada and Mexico, upgraded our immigration and visa system to be second to none in the world so that we would know who is and who is not coming in and living in the country. Spend whatever was needed at the southern border to control the flow of people that happens there on a yearly basis, no matter who is in fucking office. For $2 trillion, we could have ensured that the identity, age, family history, blood type, favorite fucking movie of every single person that has entered this country for the last 20 years. For fuck's sake. We're an ocean away from the threat. The best thing that we thought to do for this length of time with these results. We let our representatives squander it. We took 3,000 dead from the World Trade Center, traded their lives for 7,000 more dead in the military and 20 to 40,000 dead people in those countries. Those 20 to 40,000, that's just the ballpark figure of people just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And a lot of those strikes were aimed at the wrong people. That's something that we have to account for. The authority given that executions of other people can be ordered at any time for almost any reason. You go back through and look at what they knew about this one. Why would any other one be different? They knew almost nothing. And this sort of thing gets you pinned as anti-American. I don't give a shit. I'm not talking about the ideal of our country. I'm talking about concrete actions. You know how you know somebody really cares about you? They'll tell you the fucking hard truths that other people won't. Your best friend will pull you aside and tell you what you need to hear. The ones that actually care will hold you to the standard that you set for yourself, and you'll do the same for them. That's my attitude toward our country. There's plenty of days to sit around, pat ourselves on the back, but there's more days when we need to take hard lessons and be fucking adults and analyze what we've done here. We can do better than this. The execution of an innocent family on our way out of this country proves that we have to do better, to me. Unfortunately, all of our problems have long causes and will take only long solutions. We're really used to now living in the short term, and that's just not going to be, that's not going to provide us the fixes that we need. And to me, it just starts at a baseline, at a beginning. A start point is to increase the number of people who vote. The system is already set up. You can get into it easily, and it's a good start. There's only two ways to change a government or to influence your government. It's either violence or voting. So we start with voting. This last election was on every news station, in every Twitter feed and Rumble post and Facebook, everywhere in 2020. And it still was only like 64% of people voting. That's where we start. And voting for anybody except a Republican or a Democrat is equally important at this point. There's always multiple people on your ballot. Always. Sometimes in the really small elections, really local elections, you'll only have Republicans and Democrats, but those people you can influence even more or learn even more about because they're so local. So it kind of will balance itself out there a little bit. But in bigger elections for Senate, Congress, President, there are always other parties. And you always look at them, you know, for those of you that go vote on, you know, whenever it comes time, you look at them and you just, you know, you might know the name of one or two, whoever the Libertarian candidate was or the Green Party candidate, but they get, 2-3%. It's very easy to find out about people now. At every opportunity, we got to vote outside of these two parties. You can Google who it is in the booth. You don't need to be an expert on somebody to vote for them. Pick someone that seems reasonable, and we can start there. And as always, send me your comments, your thoughts, questions, corrections to thebestideapodcast@gmail.com. Please comment and follow the show. And if you like any of the content of the episode, share it with people, see where they stand. I'm on Twitter @thebestidea, Instagram, almostgreat101. I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next time.